Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Welcome to this council meeting. Can I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction on hearing the alarm? You should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phone and turn any electronic devices being used to silence. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to internet webcast recording and the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in a public area of the council chamber, it is likely your image will be captured by the recording cameras, and the result, your image may become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area in the main body of the council chamber and move to the public gallery. I would also request that members ensure that they are familiar with the procedure rules concerning points of order, personal explanation and points of information or clarification, which are set out on page 3 of the agenda, and remind them that a proposer of a motion may speak for 5 minutes to introduce the item, the seconder may speak for 3 minutes, which may be reserved, other speakers for 3 minutes. The proposer has a further 5 minutes to finally sum up before the vote. Could I ask members to please refer to a page number to allow us to find it before speaking? And just as a personal note, may I also request that councillors do not speak over each other. I think on our last meeting there was a little bit more of that than I would like. I can't concentrate on 2 people at once, so I request that we allow our fellow councillors to speak without interruption. I would also like to remind members the Code of Conduct can be found in Part 5 of the Constitution, also the Protocol for member staff relations at Part 5.4. Please can members ensure that they conduct themselves in line with the principles outlined. Finally, please remain seated whilst speaking if it will cause you difficulty to stand. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillors Gordon, McShane, Naylor, Cloak, Gelder-Bloom and Marsh. Are there any others? I note that Councillor Lewis isn't in chamber at present, but I believe he's en route. But that be subject to the rules of debate. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to be made at this point? Thank you. Item 3, Mayor's announcements. I start tonight's meeting by sending our condolences to the family and friends of Roy Tyzack, BEM, who passed away recently. Roy was a parish councillor in Navestock and a big supporter of the civic office. Thinking of his wife Penelope at this time. I would also like to send condolences to the family and friends and the community on the passing of Bishop Mahone. Bishop Mahone was the Bishop of Brentwood for 34 years. That's this. I would like to congratulate and welcome newly elected Councillor Quirk to his first full council meeting. I'd also like to take this opportunity to congratulate our Macebearer, Paul Mayhew, on his installation as Prime Warden for the Guild of Macebearers. This installation event was attended by a guest of honour, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons and First Deputy Chairman of Ways and Means, Ms Judith Cummins MP. This is a special year for the Guild as it marks 100 years since the formal gathering of a group of mace bearers. We are all very proud of you in Brentwood, and I know you're the civic heartbeat of Brentwood. I'd like to congratulate you wholeheartedly. It was an honour to be part of Remembrance Day Parade as Mayor of Brentwood. The event was humbling, and I was privileged to represent the Borough of Brentwood, joined by representatives from our local branch of the Royal British Legion and the cadets and organisations. Leading the parade of almost 600 people to the War Memorial and through the High Street was an occasion I will never forget, and I was proud to be the Mayor of this great town. The service followed at St Thomas's Church allowed us to remember and never forget those who have fought and selflessly gave their lives to our country. Thank you to the organisers, with a personal note thanks to council officers and all those who supported the event to make it the success it was. We got into the festive spirits as I turned on the High Street Christmas lights. I would like to thank the performers, sponsors and volunteers who helped make this event happen. I was delighted to be joined on stage with Sophie and George, the Christmas card and poem winners. I also had the opportunity to enjoy my civic carol service at St Thomas's Church last week. A big thank you to Father Mark and the choir and all at the church. It was a great service surrounded by fellow mayors and chairmen, members and those in the community. It was also lovely to be joined by Sophie, the Christmas poem winner who read so beautifully. Since the last council meeting, I've hosted 2 charity events, a quiz night at King George's Playing Fields and a tour of Brentwood Brewery. Both events were very well received and I'm grateful for the fundraising and awareness raised for my chosen charities, the Wilderness Foundation UK and Recoil Trampoline Centre. In more exciting news, the Civic Star of Brentwood Awards nominations for 2025 are now open. Please do consider nominating or spreading the word so that those individuals or organisations can be rewarded for their great achievements in our borough. I look forward to attending more events in the borough, in and around the borough, in the new year. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year ahead. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Is it your wish that I sign as a correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of September 2025, which begins on page 5 of the agenda? Councillor Barrett, you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to the minutes from the 23rd of July, I think we all recognise in that meeting it was an emotional time for all of us, considering the loss of Councillor Mark Reid. I just want to put on record that I can now confirm that in memory of Mark, and we're aiming for February, his birthday next year, to install a bench that will be a permanent memorial to him in his ward of Hutton South that he cared about so deeply, and we will consult with his former colleagues in that ward on the exact location, but the intention is for a February birth installation that's now been budgeted for and prepared, with appropriate delegations announced, and beyond that as well we will look to bring forward a protocol for how we recognise serving members and officers who are lost while they're in service as well. But I think it's worth putting on record that that is something we're looking to do, and if there are no further ordinary council meetings before Mark's birthday, that will be our intention. I think hopefully that'll be a fitting memorial for him and his family to consider Mark at that moment, at that time, and reflect on all of us on his life and his contributions to this borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. I think we'll certainly take that recommendation going forward. So, is it your wish that I sign as correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of July 2025, which is tabled in front of you this evening? Item number 5, public questions. 3 questions from the public have been received. Mrs. Smith is unable to attend this evening and has asked me to read her question. Question 1. Has any independent analysis been conducted in Brentwood area to determine whether factors such as political allegiance of a ward and local demographics include the approval of new developments or redevelopments beyond the usual planning considerations? Can I ask Councillor Minor to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I thank Mrs. Smith, although she's not here, for that most interesting question. I'm not aware that any independent analysis has been conducted to determine whether such factors as those mentioned in this question may have any bearing on the outcome of new development applications. However, it seems vanishingly unlikely that any such analysis would identify any current factors of the sort mentioned. All minor applications are decided on the merits or otherwise of the schemes proposed, and their outcomes vary accordingly. But let us remember that almost all major developments taking place at present in the Borough of Brentwood are on sites allocated during the creation of the present local plan, which was, of course, drawn up under and exclusively agreed by the members of a different administration. So far, every local plan site in whatever ward which has come to committee as a live application has been approved, albeit on some occasions after deferrals and minor changes. The nature of the local plan process, even as it stood under the previous government, was that sites allocated in the plan have an overwhelming presumption in favour of development, and this is the primary reason why the local plan sites which have come forward have indeed been approved, despite what I've described as being gross variations in the quality of those applications. Therefore, anyone looking into recent planning approvals will find that the vast majority of new development will simply be on the sites selected by the previous administration to be in Brentwood's 2022 local plan. As it happens, the last 6 sites agreed at committee have been in 4 wards, which between them now have just 2 Conservative councillors, 2 independent councillors and 8 Lib Dem joint administration councillors, despite the local plan having been drawn up under the Conservatives. Make of that what you will.
Thank you, Councillor Minor. Question 2. Has Brentwood Council been involved in and what is their position regarding the concerning Bishop Hill Adult Education Centre closure?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer that question. Brentwood Borough Council has been actively involved in discussions concerning Essex County Council's decision to close Bishop's Hill Adult Education Centre. On the 24th of September, we formally addressed our concerns through a letter to Councillor Bentley and Essex County Council Cabinet, highlighting the lack of prior consultation and the premature disposal of furniture and equipment, which complicates any future reinstatement for community use. In our correspondence, we invited Essex Council to engage in a constructive dialogue to explore sustainable options for the site. Essex County Council responded on the 9th of October, clarifying that the decision to discontinue Bishop's Hill as an adult community learning delivery site was made at Cabinet in April 2025, citing financial sustainability reasons. They emphasised that the ACL is not withdrawing from Brentwood. Instead, courses are now being developed at various community venues across the borough. Importantly, Essex County Council has now committed to considering community use alongside disposal in its options appraisal for the site's future. Should Essex County Council proceed with disposal, Brentwood Borough Council has confirmed it is not in a position to acquire Bishop's Hill Hall at this time. This is due to the significant maintenance backlog and the absence of a viable partnership model to support ongoing operations. On the 19th of November, our Assets Project and Strategy Committee agreed to add Bishop's Hill to the local heritage list as a non-designated heritage asset. Additionally, the Housing, Health and Community Committee unanimously resolved on the 8th of September to nominate Bishop's Hill Hall an asset of community value, recognising its long-standing contribution to education, well-being and community cohesion. Under the anticipated local government reorganisation timetable, education-related assets typically fall under statutory controls during reorganisation. Consequently,
Bishop's Hill is likely to become ineligible for disposal by autumn 2026. We urge Essex County Council to pause any disposal activities and to collaborate with Brentwood Borough Council and local stakeholders in developing partnership or community-led alternatives that safeguard educational and community access at Bishop's Hill. The community deserves a transparent, inclusive process and a future for Bishop's Hill that reflects its value to the local residents. Brentwood Borough Council stands ready to work constructively with Essex County Council towards a sustainable solution. What is needed now is a meaningful engagement, not disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Barrett. One question received from Paul Buddin. Please come to the lectern to read your question.
Thank you very much. We, Grange Motors Brentwood Limited, have spent the past 2 years trying to secure a long-term tenure for our existing site. Brentwood has been the home of Grange Motors for more than 70 years. Our vision is to establish 6 new high luxury sector brands at our new site, in addition to retaining 3 high luxury sector brands at the existing location. This would give Brentwood a total of 9 of the world's most prestigious automotive brands in the world. Regarding the proposed redevelopment of our existing site to Brook Street, Brentwood, we would like to clarify whether the leader is aware that it is the landlord, Grange Wood Brentwood Limited, and not us, Grange Motors Brentwood Limited, who are the tenant looking to redevelop the site. We remain fully committed to staying at the existing premises and advancing our long-term plans.
Can I ask the leader to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, totally aware of the current situation. I can see there is a slight confusion with the 2 titles that are very similar, but I understand and I'm quite aware, as is this council, of the long-standing commitment your company have had in Brentwood and the outstanding work that you've achieved over those years. I wish you well in your endeavours to stay in Brentwood. Without Grange Motors, it will be a different place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Item 6, memorials or petitions. I believe there are 2 petitions being presented this evening. Can I ask Councillor Russell to confirm the details of the position and present this to me?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have a petition here, 2 parts to it actually. One of them was submitted to as part of a planning application, but it wasn't acknowledged. So, Notomoto have asked me to present this petition to you so that there is an acknowledgement. I'd like it minuted, please, that, that you've accepted these minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Could I ask Councillor Kendall to confirm the details of the position and present this to me?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present 2 petitions to you this evening that have been organised by residents on the homesteads in Brentwood West. The petitions have been signed by 1,230 residents who are opposed to any proposed development on the Greenbelt land in Honeypot Lane. Residents respectfully ask that councillors consider the petitions and accompanying concerns in full when assessing any forthcoming planning applications in Honeypot Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. These will both be referred to the planning team. Item 7, committee chairs, reports and members' questions. The period of written or oral questions is 60 minutes. One written question has been received and a written response is published on page 13 of the supplementary agenda. Councillor Quirk, would you like to ask a supplementary question based on your response?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I would. And good evening, everybody. It's great to be back, to see some old faces and some new ones. I'm sure we'll all get on just fine. Yes, my supplementary question is this. I think, and it may well be my fault, I'll take the blame for this, some confusion with regard to the response that Councillor Aspinall, the Leader of the Council, has provided. I wasn't seeking in this question to suggest that we should have all-up elections every 4 years. The premise, as won't be a surprise to you, of my question was to ensure that we have a commitment from this council with regard to there being elections as duly scheduled in May 2026 and beyond. So I'm going to ask a question, if I may, for Councillor Aspinall to answer. But I have to just say very quickly, I'm extremely flattered. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I tried to put this as a motion, of course, as I'm sure some of you are aware, and for all of you are aware, because I asked just about every party in this chamber. I will get to my point. I will get to my question. And it was refused. I didn't have a seconder. Delighted to see that the Liberal Democrats have copied and pasted my motion.
We've got a very full agenda this evening.
We will talk about later on. So my question
Councillor Quirk, we have a very full agenda. I request that you get to the point of your question.
As I've just said, my question is, can the Leader of the Council then pledge, therefore, that on behalf of the administration there will be Brentwood local council elections in May 2026?
That, I presume, was to the Leader of the Council, but yeah.
That I can pledge that this administration, this joint administration of Brentwood, wants to have elections next May. This will come out fully in the motion later on this evening, but I cannot pledge that there will be some. That is not in my gift. It is not in the gift of this council. The county council elections is in the gift of the county, however. They can request a delay or whatever. But we can't do that here. But later on in the motion, you'll hear of our conviction that we wish to have elections next May for this borough, and perhaps even the county.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Are there any oral questions to the chairs this evening?
Mr Mayor, can I just ask that all questions and answers are recorded verbatim in the minutes, please? Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. That's why I've got Councillor Barber. Councillor Barber, I'll ask you. Sorry, Councillor Davis, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A question to the Chair of Finance and Resource. Please, can you update members on the current situation of ANPR in Chatham Way and William Hunter Way car parks, please?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davis, for that question. I can give members the latest update that we have this evening. The Chatham Way barriers and cameras are now live and operational, as are the new pay and display machines. So you can use contactless and cash in the Chatham Way car park. William Hunter Way entrance barriers are now live and operational, as are the pay and display machines. The exit barriers are currently raised in open position to allow cars that came into the car park this morning to be able to exit without issue this evening. Members of the Metrics team will be on site early tomorrow morning to lower the exit barriers and fully switch to the new system. So from tomorrow, both car parks will be fully operational with ANPR, which is a major improvement on what we've got at the moment. Temporary signage explains to residents is ready to go with immediate effect, and that will be put up tomorrow. And the new backboards have been ordered for both car parks and are expected to be fitted next week. Just to confirm that residents will be able to use cash and contactless cards in both the car parks going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. May I just remind councillors, can you gesture quite vociferously so that the Deputy Mayor can catch your eye? So, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Deputy Mayor. The question is to the Chair of Clean and Green, and that is, from March 2026, the new simplified recycling legislation will mandate that all households in England, including purpose-built flats, HMOs, such as student houses and flats above shops, have a separate weekly collection of food waste. This change aims to reduce food waste sent to landfill by ensuring it is collected separately from general rubbish. For landlords of HMOs, this means reviewing current waste management practices to comply with the new rules. Failure to do so could result in a fixed penalty fine of £5,000 and may also jeopardise property licences if the waste management standards are not met. So my question is, what steps are being taken by the Council to contact landlords to inform them of this, and who will be issuing the fixed penalty fines? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Russell.
Thank you very much, Councillor Russell, for the question. Yeah, we did discuss this at the last Clean and Green Committee. We were well aware of the obligation to make a lot of progress quite quickly on this. The officers have spoken to other authorities in Essex who are slightly ahead of the curve, because some have already done this. So we've taken some learnings from that. We have got a pretty good register of landlords ready to go. Frankly, there isn't a lot of point in launching into that now in a couple of weeks before Christmas. So we have a major contact campaign that is on the starting blocks, ready to go as soon as we get to the new year. It is going to be a big ask for some landlords, because we all know that blocks of flats are built to different design at different times, and that many of the waste areas are frankly not conducive to being reorganised to collect separate waste streams. But we've got quite a lot of very good examples of what's been done elsewhere. I'm a great believer in not reinventing the wheel. If someone's already done it, I'm quite happy to take their wheel and use it. And so I think we have got some pretty good examples of the sort of signage, almost down to lining the pathway to wherever the food waste is going to be collected. It is going to be a challenge. There's going to have to be a lot of publicity and a lot of hand-holding. Yes, there is in the legislation a fixed penalty regime. I'd be very honest, I would hope that we can work with landlords who are having difficulty, genuine difficulty, and not jump on them straight away. Obviously those who are being deliberately recalcitrant, then we will have to hold them to account. I'll get the officers to respond separately. I do not know off the top of my head the process for administering the fixed penalty notices, but I think I've given you a flavour of how I think we should approach it. It's not a big stick with everybody. We want people to come with us. We want people to understand why it is beneficial to recycle food waste separately. I found when I've talked to people that they're very receptive to that message. So I'm quite hopeful that it will go well. But we need to move quickly. I absolutely understand why you asked the question.
Thank you, Councillor Horsford. Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another question for the Chair of the Clean and Green Committee. Carbon literacy training was in the members' training programme, very discreetly being dropped. Does the Chair know why? Thank you.
Councillor Horsford.
It hasn't been dropped. It is still in the programme. It will be offered. We're currently looking at the best configuration to offer that training, but it was in the training programme approved by the Audit and Governance Committee. Perhaps the Chair of that committee could confirm that.
Councillor Rigby, you have further detail.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In response to my colleague's answer and to answer your question, a paper on training, which includes the revised proposal for carbon literacy, both in terms of a taster optional session for members and a more involved element, will come before the committee in February, having taken notice of the full and frank debate that took place at the Audit and Governance Committee, and we will obviously discuss that then. Obviously, a members' training programme, which is put together by officers for the Audit and Governance Committee supervision, reflects the training needs of the whole council, not just any one committee.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Do you have any further questions?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in response to that, I think it would have, because on the 29th of October we did receive a document where it just was completely removed. I think it would have been nice to have had an update on why, you know, it was going to be updated anyway.
Sorry, Councillor, if you wish to take that up with the Council and the committee, please do.
No
it's any supplementary questions.
Anyway,
any questions for any other chair?
To the chair of the Scrutiny, Performance and Standards Committee. What's happening with the work on Brentwood Sainsbury's that the Scrutiny Committee has been doing for the past 18 months? I understand there was a meeting where I believe a lot of work still needs to be done based on that meeting. What's the plan for that work? Thank you.
Councillor Porter.
I'll answer this in the absence of the Chair of Scrutiny, as Vice Chair. There was a meeting, I don't think you were present, but it was a very useful meeting. We had the manager of the Brentwood Sainsbury's store online and also a legal representative, and they were challenged with some quite difficult questions. There was a very fair and frank exchange of views. Certainly members did not hold back in expressing their opinions. And as for what's happened since, officers wrote to the Sainsbury's Executive Office about their future plans, and I can forward you a copy of that email, of that reply that we had from Sainsbury's, if you like.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Poppy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a question for the Chair of Planning. I mentioned a couple of meetings ago that people are getting sort of worried that the decisions are being made in the corridor over there and not actually in the chamber and not in front of the screens. And I noticed at the following meeting we did exactly the same again. I'm just wondering, sort of question in two parts really. One, can you assure us that this is not going to happen anymore? We're not going to have any more decisions that are made in a corridor and not in front of the public. And secondly, I guess as a chair that's not really chairing, I just wondered whether you wanted to volunteer to give your allowance to the Mayor's charity.
Well, I have to say I somewhat resent the accusation I'm not really chairing. The reality is that currently chairing planning is an extremely difficult task, and it would be an extremely difficult task for anybody who had to do it. The fundamental point that has to be made here is that no decisions are being made in the corridor. Decisions are made in the council chamber, and anybody who watches any of those planning meetings or attends those planning meetings can see the decisions being made in the council chamber. What happens in the corridor is that a discussion takes place. There are no decisions happening out there because nobody can vote out there, and the voting is when the decision takes place. Obviously, it's frustrating for members and for residents when they can't see or hear the conversation that's taken place. But there are occasions when there's need to get information from officers, for members to get information from officers, and to find out what the information is, and then to be able to think further forward on the basis of that information. Doing that kind of thing in front of, particularly in front of applicants, given the kinds of threats that this council faces over things like legal challenges and the costs that this council could have awarded against it from legal challenges, would be extremely unwise and irresponsible. I absolutely don't want to do that. I don't want to ever have to do that again. And this is one of the things that was discussed when the PAS team came to Brentwood recently. The fact that that's been going on, the fact that it's a problem, the fact that we don't want to do it. The problem that we're facing sometimes with planning is that we are discovering stuff in the middle of meetings, which makes it very difficult to go forward and difficult to work out what the best route forward is. And one of the biggest problems as well is, again, as anybody who's paying attention in those meetings will, I think, probably be aware of, is that we're very often faced in planning. And this is cross-party because every member of the committee is faced by these questions. And when it comes to their vote, they have to make their decisions. We're very often faced with two very, very unpleasant and unwelcome choices. We don't have a good choice. We don't have a bad choice that we can easily turn away from, and we don't have a good choice that we can turn towards. So we're faced with very, very difficult and very, very unpleasant choices, and that can be a very awkward and difficult thought process. As I say, I would love to be able to say that won't happen again. I very much hope that processes can and will be improved to ensure that that doesn't need to happen again. But being under those pressures and having those problems in the middle of meetings is something that we can't legislate for, and we can't know in advance. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen in advance, but we can't legislate for it, and we cannot know what's going to happen in advance. And by definition, what I've just said to you, the problem that we're facing is that we're often discovering things literally in the middle of meetings that we didn't know about beforehand. I can't tell you now that we're never going to discover things literally in the middle of meetings that we didn't know about beforehand, very obviously.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 questions for 3 different chairs, so perfect, thank you. My first question is actually to the Chair of Housing, Health and Communities. On page 33, under the items exempt from publication, could I just ask that the Chair considers discussing with the officers if that item needs to be rewritten, because currently it reads the contract award for fire door inspections and associated remedial works was agreed as well as a variation of contract, and it specifies Access Europe, so it currently reads as if both those contracts were awarded to Access. So that's my first question. Do you want me to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's any error in that, please contact me and we'll make sure that's resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My next question to the Chair of Clean and Green. It's regarding the pilot of the Big Belly smart bins. Can I just seek clarification that the Brentwood Borough Council vehicles do have the required in-cab technology to enable live monitoring of bin emptying, along with providing a means of monitoring performance?
Councillor Walsall.
The simple answer is that that is not in all cabs as yet. We know that. We've reported that to Clean and Green. It is an aim. There is a need to update the software that supports that, and that is a development item that is in the budget that is going to come forward in a couple of months' time. We are very keen that we enable all of our lorries, vans that are collecting waste, emptying bins to be connected so they can operate more efficiently. we don't currently have the right software. The software is very out of date. So we've got to update the software. As I said, that is a development item. Obviously, there then have to be a training program so that people can use that software as efficiently as possible. But all of that is well in hand. It is a priority, and we will see the benefits from that very early in 2026.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And my final question to the Leader of the Council. Regarding community interest companies, I previously understood that they were not permitted to collect donations within the Borough of Brentwood. According to the Council's charity collection schedule, on December 5th and 6th, the National Deaf Children's Society was scheduled to collect funds on Brentwood High Street. However, Homeless in Need UK, a CIC and not a registered charity, were collecting donations. I made CCTV aware. Therefore, I asked the Leader of the Council to work with officers to communicate with retailers to inform of Brentwood Borough Council's policy regarding community interest companies, which includes the Brentwood Borough Council's charity collection schedule, along with the contact details to who to report CICs to.
Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Slade, for your question. Absolutely, 100%. We want people to be able to raise money for their legitimate charities. We want people in Brentwood that are shopping to be able to engage in that process if they can. Everyone needs a licence, everyone needs to be approved. We need to make sure that the legitimate, genuine charities that are there to collect money for their worthy causes can do, and that others need to apply or not be there.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First question for the Chairman of Clean and Green. Can the Chair of Clean and Green, sounds like a toilet roll, give a financial report on savings or loss on the purchase of biofuel against diesel, and also a profit and loss on electric vehicles against diesel? Now, I realise he might not be able to answer that question tonight, as there's no 151 officer here. I accept it to come at a later date, but if you can answer, please do.
Sorry? I can certainly refer you on the second part of your question and the relative costs of electric vehicles versus diesel vehicles to the extremely detailed report that we had at Clean and Green Committee, which set out the replacement schedule for all of our vehicles going forward over several years, setting out the comparative cost of diesel vehicles versus electric vehicles, and gave some indication of where we think that the purchase of electric vehicles will be beneficial, both in terms of environmental benefits, which are screamingly obvious, and also in terms of cost, in terms of going forward, that they are much cheaper to run. So where that configuration sits comfortably, and it's all in the report, I would urge you to read it. I think you'll find it very informative. It is very detailed, and it does go through all the vehicles we have in our fleet, and when they're going to need to be replaced. On the cost of green diesel versus mineral diesel, I can certainly ask the officers to prepare some figures. You will see from the budget that the discrepancy has narrowed between the purchase costs of HVO versus mineral diesel, and of course the operational costs are lower because the maintenance of the vehicles that use green diesel is much more efficient. Mineral diesel, there's a clue in the name of it. It's got mineral in it. It's very wearing on engine parts. Green diesel does not have the same effect on engine parts over the long term. There are many vehicles that have been run for many years on green diesel
that prove that point time and time again. So, these are not simplistic. How much does this cost compared to how much does that cost? It is a more complex picture, but I can certainly ask the officers to reply on the cost of the diesel point. As I said, all the answers to the second part of your question have already been through the committee.
I did read it, and I worked it out that they'd only break even by the time they was replaced. But nevertheless, a further question to the Finance and Resources Chair. Taking into account that Westbury Car Park is up for sale, what is the views on this considering, is the administration's views on this considering that they campaign very hard against this development in opposition? Could it be that the realisation of the financial benefits has suddenly hit home?
Mr. Mayor, I believe this came under assets, the disposal of assets, rather than finance and resources, but I can confirm this was made on a decision on the best possibility of achieving the highest return for the council, and in turn it is being disposed of with planning permission available for those who developed, which is the process that follows with any asset disposal. In terms of our asset management process, we look at the highest possible value for the council, and frankly any past decision doesn't necessarily matter. It's actually the here and now is the only thing that matters for residents, rather than looking back in time on what could have been, what may have been, what could have happened. I only care about the future, and I only care about delivering for residents day after day. The disposal of this asset is the best option for our residents, it's the best option for this council, and it's the right decision for the committee to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A question for the Chair of Finance and Resources. We are within a week, I think, of the local government finance settlement. It'll be time to start thinking about budgets for next year and working out what money we're going to get and how we're going to spend it. And I do welcome the fact, as the report says, that we have a budget setting process in place, and that's good. The fact remains, though, that as the reports for both September and November from the Chair say, we have a substantial underspend this year. And whilst the report says it's largely from one-off investment income, we know from the debate that actually a lot of it is to do with vacancies. We are in a situation where we've transferred £3.75 million this year to reserves. That's roughly half of our council tax take. And yet we are in a situation where bins are unemptied, where we have graffiti in Copthall Road car park that's been there for months, where the pigeon mess under Shenfield Bridge is repeatedly not tidied and deep cleaned in the way that we've been promised it will be. The fact is that we have budgets, but we are not getting traction with our services. Can the Chair please tell me what measures are being taken to make sure that our budgets are actually spent in the interests of our residents?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. I can assure him that I've been looking at the next budget for many months, not just starting now. The process has been underway for a long, long time. Officers, particularly Sarah Harris, is constantly reviewing with officers about underspends with committees in terms of what they're doing, what their plans are. I'm also involved as well, talking to various directors about where they are. In terms of plans going forward, we as an administration are putting our budget plans together. There will be a number of improvements that we'll be putting forward in terms of the budget. I know in recent times the Conservative group have put forward some amendments. I'm sure, no, Councillor Hurst, you'll have something to put forward, which is always welcome. It's always good to see. But as I say, it's part of the budget setting process. I mean, there is a lot of things happening in the borough at the moment. There's a lot of work going on in the borough at the moment. If you attend any of the committees, I think Councillor Worsfold's highlighted it tonight. There's loads of things happening in each of the committee. I would urge members, if you're concerned about a particular area, attend that committee. Go to that committee, listen to debates, read the reports. It does worry me sometimes because some members seem to come up with things and say, oh, this is happening, that's happening. Go back in time, read the reports. Some things which are going on, the Brentwood Centre is a classic one. It's been in about 4 or 5 committee reports. It hasn't suddenly happened. It was in the Brentwood Borough News. It's not some mystery that suddenly appeared. There's lots of things going on in this borough. There's lots of improvements that are happening. I've got loads that are happening on finance and resources, which is doing a new shopfront improvement scheme, which is backing up what happened on the UK SBF programme. This means that for wards such as Hutton East, where they weren't included in the original programme, their outlets can now be included. Other places such as the villages can also have their outlets included. These are positive measures which are taking place. There's always going to be issues we can find. I mean, you mentioned about the pigeons and graffiti. There's always going to be something out there that needs addressing. But if it does need addressing, contact the committee chair, say to them, what are you doing about these specific issues? What action are you taking? And get a response. That's what the committee chairs are there for. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Councillor Wackland.
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor. And my first question is to, I've got two, if I may, and they're both within reasonable distance in the paperwork, which should be more helpful. So, reverting to page 35, this is a question for the Chair of Scrutiny, Performance and Standards. I'm not sure who's standing for that at the moment. And I have a concern which follows on from Councillor Chinnery's point, and I would ask that chair, or whoever's speaking for him, whether he agrees with me that the words in the third paragraph, so that's the last paragraph on page 35, fail entirely at all to reflect the reluctance of Sainsbury's at that meeting to answer questions, the complete lack of preparedness for what was a formal meeting and had been invited as such with some details, and the really concerning reports on some matters. For example, it became clear through a few questions that improvements are a matter of pure reactivity to complaint by Sainsbury's rather than any sort of active consideration of what could be improved. And the really sad inability to answer one of my questions, which was, were the people who were before us proud to work for Sainsbury's? So my concern and question for the Chair is, does he agree that that really needs to be put in a way that those who watched the report, and I note that the press picked it up as well and saw what was going on in the meeting, that those who watched that meeting online will be able to recognise the meeting that they attended. Thank you. And then I have one after that, if I may, for another chair. Thank you.
Councillor Gorton, are you able to?
Thank you, Chair. To answer Councillor Wagland's point, yes, I do think that Sainsbury's were ill-prepared for the meeting. But on the other hand, we made our points very well. We expressed our dissatisfaction with the situation with the store at present and in the past. I think the new manager stressed that improvements had been made since she had taken over. And certainly the issue with the food standards rating, where they came out with a 0-star rating and now got a 4-star rating, I thought that was addressed. I thought we had a good meeting, a good exchange of views. And I really can't answer for Sainsbury's. This is the point, you know. Sainsbury's we cannot answer for Sainsbury's ill-preparedness for that meeting. That was up to them. That was their fault, not our fault. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, give me a point of order, but that isn't an answer to the question. That isn't our... Thank you. That isn't an answer to the question that I asked. The question I asked was, did he agree it reflected, that does not reflect the meeting? And my question is about how it's minuted here. So I think it's really important that that should be addressed, and I would like to raise that as a point of order, that was the question that I was asking, which is, does he agree with me that this doesn't reflect the meeting that we had? Thank you.
Councillor Gorton.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The Chair's report is just a summary of the meeting, obviously. And the minutes have not actually been issued yet. And I have queried the minutes. I didn't think the draft minutes were not full enough. So we will get a revised set of minutes at the next meeting in January, of which I hope reflect better what was said, what occurred in the meeting, and perhaps reflect Sainsbury's lack of preparedness for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. I think that addresses your point there, Councillor Ragland. So you have another question.
Yes, Chair, if I may say so, that is most helpful. Thank you. My second question was for Councillor Barrett, Councillor Tim Barrett, which is in relation to the report that begins on page 31, which is the report from Housing, Health and Communities. And it's on the next page, page 32, and on that page there is talk about Ingleton House, and it will be appreciated that from a resident's point of view this is a very disappointing situation. The question that I'm asking of the Chair is, do we have an analysis of the costs of the length of time for which Ingleton House has remained and will remain unable to be occupied? And the second question that I have is, what review is going to be undertaken in order to ensure that lessons are learned, particularly in relation to the advisory functions that have been secured by this council, that enabled us to come up with a proposal which has now had to be so substantially whittled down and changed. So those are my two questions for that particular Chair. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Dr Barrett, I'm going to assume those as one question, because we have one question to each Chair.
Mr. Mayor, if that's the case and you feel it necessary I would suggest that one or two people have trespassed in that respect. But if I may say so, in that case, I would like the answer to the second question, and will write to the Chair saying that I would now like to have the details of how much that costing would be. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dr Barrett.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I would suggest written questions are advisable when you're asking for exact numbers, because I wouldn't be able to come up with them on the fly. But I would say that obviously we're moving forward on Ingleton, and I do want an after-action review at the end of the SHDP, but I do not want that to distract as a distraction to moving forwards as fast as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Quirk.
Thank you. It's a question for Councillor Minot as Chairman of the Planning Committee. Reference was made earlier on insofar as some disquiet, it seems, with regard to the running of the Planning Committee. And strangely enough, this week I've had an email from Carla Holmes regarding a planning application that I think the committee saw some months ago in Hanging Hill Lane for 97 homes. And in that email they suggest that because the reasons for refusal that were given by our committee were not robust and sound enough, that partial costs have been levied against this council. So my question to Councillor Minor is, how much exactly is the taxpayer on the hook for as a consequence of that decision?
Again, if you're going to be asking questions about specific numbers, it would be a lot more advisable to ask those as written questions in advance, because then the numbers can obviously be supplied in the public meeting. I don't have the answer to that question off the top of my head.
Mr. Mayor, can I just, a point of information, there's obviously a deadline insofar as written questions being submitted. As I've just said, the email that I received from Carla Holmes was only this week. Obviously, that was after the deadline. Frankly, I would expect the Chairman of Planning to know what we're on the hook for if a planning decision has been made that is seen to not be robust, and where there has been an appeal decision made where our taxpayers are going to have to dig into their pockets. I would imagine that a Chairman of Planning would know the answer to that question.
Councillor Quack, it doesn't fall within the kind of remit of a point of clarification. Point of information or clarification must relate to the matter being debated. Points of information or clarification should be used in exceptional circumstances and should not be used to interrupt other speakers or to make further speech when he or she has already spoken during the debate. So thank you.
Shall I just say, obviously, Councillor Quirk can be supplied with those figures, but it can't happen in the middle of the meeting.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question is to the Chair of Clean and Green. My colleagues, Councillor Gibson and Councillor Chinnery, have raised a number of times in committee about the use of cameras to address fly tipping around the borough. Can you tell us what the delay is in the administration rolling out cameras which could help towards contributing to prosecution, successful prosecutions of some of the people committing fly tipping, because we appear to have made little to no progress on that subject?
Councillor Mosswell.
Well, we have deployed cameras where we believe they can be effective. I'm sure people are aware the problem is the fly tipping doesn't always occur in exactly the same location. Locating the cameras, and we have used the wildlife cameras, the ones that are disguised to try and catch people, and we have got some CCTV evidence of from some of the fly tips. I don't think there is a delay. I'm well aware that, so for instance, in my own ward, Hall Lane, which has been a particular target of fly tippers, the fly tips have been all along Hall Lane. Where do you put the cameras? Do you have a camera on every single tree? Can we justify that? Those are the sort of questions you have to ask. And then you also have to remember that a lot of this fly tipping is being done by very organised criminal gangs. You capture a vehicle, and maybe, if you're lucky, a registration number on the camera. But as soon as they're out of range of the camera, the registration plate is changed. They are that sophisticated. They clock where cameras are, and they operate accordingly so that they escape the long arm of the law. Our best chance, frankly, of identifying the fly tippers and catching them is by examining what they leave. And I have one plea there is when items are dumped in public spaces, please do not touch those, because if a member of the public starts interfering with that dump, it contaminates the evidence and it makes it very hard for us to use it. And I do know that there is one case that is going to court, I believe it's in February. We have another one where we found some bank statements in one of the fly tips, I believe from a business in Old Kent Road. I think they will be getting a call from the appropriate authorities to explain why their bank statements were dumped in Brentwood, because that gives us the opportunity to pursue the people who are responsible. People have to understand that if they do not check the licensing of the waste disposal people that they're using, that they become responsible if that waste is not disposed in the correct manner. So it is a complicated challenge. It is a difficult challenge. We're not alone. It happens right across the country. We all saw that horrific one in Lidlington in Oxfordshire. and how that was allowed to go on for weeks, I've no idea. But where we can make cameras work, we are installing them. There is no delay. Every request for cameras is looked at, is assessed, and there is a criteria that I'm pretty sure has been shared publicly. If it hasn't, I would table that at the next Clean and Green Committee, so that if members think it needs to be tightened up, then we can do that. Quite happy to listen to any constructive ideas for tackling this horrendous problem, because it's a blight, and it's one that nobody has simplistic answers to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My next question is to the Chair of Housing, Health and Community, Dr. Tim Barrett. Given the, we've just heard it, mandatory move to recycle food waste on a weekly basis, can you tell us the current status of preparations of this council for council housing, blocks of council or houses and flats, to actually accommodate that, and is he confident we'll meet the date next year? Thank you. Dr. Barrett.
Thank you, Councillor Barber, for that question. Obviously, that's been taken into consideration alongside the appropriate legislation, and I believe we're making the necessary changes, and hopefully we will be in time for that. As I said, it is a new experience for all of us, and we do have certain blocks which will be a challenge, but we will make the appropriate changes and get that in place as per the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Barrett. My final question is to the Leader of the Council. Approximately 2.5 years ago, when the Joint Administration took control of the Council, the Leader was quoted across most of the local media saying that they were going to do planning differently to the previous administration. 2.5 years later, given the dissatisfaction on the Leader's face in many planning meetings, could he just tell us how he thinks that's going?
Councillor Espinel.
A great pleasure. If you read my report that was tabled tonight and was printed the other day, you'll see that it has been an absolute struggle for members this side of the chamber to support applications on sites that we vehemently opposed to be put into the local plan when the Conservatives pushed it through. So it has been an exhaustive period, looking at all these sites, thinking how can we get the best for our residents out of them, when we knew that by virtue of the fact that they're in the local plan, they've been given assent by the Department of Environment, whoever it is who decides on local planning now, the wherewithal to just win every appeal if we was to refuse them. So we have tried to get as much out of those plans for the benefit of our local residents as possible. And of course, we're not helped by legislation, by planning laws, by legal ramifications, and by the county council and their highways, and other factors that could have helped us in the past, but do not. So it has been extremely difficult the last 2.5 years. Hopefully, we've had the last of the disastrous sites that you put forward. I believe I'm right in saying that. And now we look anew to renewing our local plan with additional sites, with all the pressures that this government is putting on us, in constructing a way forward that will be beneficial to whoever takes over from us going forward. I won't be here, but whoever takes over this this borough in whatever guise it is destined to be in, apart from bringing Brentwood Borough Council, wherever unitary it then finds itself, that authority will have, I believe, a better plan to work from. That's all I can say. And I really do do apologise to the people of Brentwood for the decisions we have had to make that have not assisted them, but have denigrated the area that they live in.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. I have no further questions being asked, so I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Item number 8, appointment of Deputy Leader. The report begins on page 39 of the agenda. Mrs Mayhew, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's nothing else to add, but happy to take any questions.
Councillor Aspinall, can you please nominate a councillor for election of Deputy Mayor? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before I do that, I've got to explain to everyone here present tonight and those that unfortunately can't be with us that the role of Deputy Leader isn't simply one who says, I second that, Mr Mayor, or yes, I'm here to second that. It's far different than it has ever been envisaged before by people standing in my position. The Deputy Leader's role has evolved through necessity, through legislation coming down from the government, from roles from within this council and from other factors within the borough and even those outside that are hoping to come into this borough and develop it and do other things. That role has evolved into something time-consuming and a position that without these two guys beside me, I could not have carried out my job this year. But Councillor Barrett has been an absolute strength in advice and support. When I can't get somewhere, he can, on that screen, be there. As for the other one, first met her in about 1989, 1990. I think she was bitten on the finger by an irate resident in Stondermassey, or maybe his dog. And from that moment, or just after that, as a firefighter, I had some knowledge of first aid. Didn't know that I was administering it to a nurse. But we have been firm friends, not just colleagues here in this chamber, but personal friends, and that will always be the case. She has been an absolute strength, even in times when her own personal health is not as robust as it normally is. And over the last 18 months, 2 years, she has been there whenever I can't, and also when I can, just to support me, which has been great. The role of Deputy Leader of this council is something where people need to understand it is almost a full-time job. And we need to look to that for the future. I know it's going to change when we have local government reform come in and we have council that is different than ours. That will be almost certainly, well, it will be a full-time responsibility. We will have full-time councillors going forward if the rollout of local government happens in the way that people are discussing it. So, having said all that, Councillor Vicky Davies has been an absolute boon and a strength to me, and I would not, again, I repeat it, I would not have been able to carry out my duties on behalf of the people of Brentwood if it hadn't been for her strength, her guidance and her wise wisdom, and her control, sometimes, of me, telling me, enough, hold back, mind your words. So, to that, I thank you so much. I'm going to miss you. You're not going far. Vicky has also been my political, she's watched my political back for nearly 30 odd years, and her position she's going to now take up in this council, she will still be looking after my back. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do recommend Councillor David Worsfold who has got experience not just in this chamber, not just as chair of one of our vital committees, groundbreaking committees. He's also got experience of being in a London borough, being a member there as well. Brings a vast amount of experience and someone I know I can rely and trust on. And I look forward to a working arrangement with him. Won't be the same as Vicky, but he will undertake that role with great aplomb that he does everything else. So I recommend Councillor David Worsfold as Deputy Leader of this Council.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. That's exactly 5 minutes. Well done. Councillor Barrett, did you want to second the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm delighted to second this nomination. But first off, like Councillor Aspinall, it's worth reflecting on a considerable servant of the borough who's stepping back but not stepping away. In Councillor Vicky Davis, she's described herself as effectively my civic mother, in a sense she's looked after me more often than not in my role as a councillor and role of deputy leader, and been both a calm voice of reason, and in turn, not that we ever team up on Councillor Aspinall, but at times it is needed. And it's been an absolute delight to work with her. There's so much to be said about Vicky, but she tends to get embarrassed if we can push it too far, so I will stop there, and I will reflect on Councillor Worsfold, who is a successful financial journalist, a Leyton Orient fan, a Liberal Democrat, and he has some positive qualities as well. He has, in that note, he has experience far beyond this authority in local government. He's actually an exceptional writer. If you read any of his work, it is fantastic and of excellent high quality. He is a keen environmentalist. He is a committed and compassionate campaigner for this borough and the people who we serve. I believe he would be a strong deputy leader. He has the capacity to take an issue on board, consider, contemplate, and come to a measured opinion on every fact and feature. And in times like this, I also reflect on the fact that Councillor Aspinall has recognised now is the time to call on youth as a future deputy leader. And in turn, we have a real opportunity, and I look forward to working with him in doing everything that we can to deliver as much as we can while we have the opportunity to serve. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to the debate, I'll invite Councillor Mrs Davis if she wants to. If you would like to, she would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wasn't expecting to. It has been a great honour to serve this council as deputy leader for the last 18 months, but I do feel it's time to pass on the baton, and more than happy to step back, but still continue my role as Vice Chair of Housing and Chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and obviously direct all my energies in those directions, because we've got a lot of work to do with the housing particularly. But thank you to my colleagues for their kind words, and I can't believe that Barry ever thought that I might have been questioning him at any time. But as he says, I'm not his deputy leader, but I'm not disappearing. And I will be right behind him, so I'm keeping an eye. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, I know I've only been back in the chamber for, well, what seems like just a few minutes, but I just want to pay tribute, if I may, to Councillor Davis. Councillor Waterford, sorry, I don't know you. I don't think we've even had a conversation, but I'm sure you'll be fine. But as I'm on my feet, I just want to talk very, very briefly, and I will be brief, about Councillor Davis. When I first got elected to this chamber in 2006, Councillor Vicky Davis was on the opposite benches. The Conservatives had control of the council at that time. And I'll let you into a little secret. When I was brought in and press-ganged into being a councillor by Brandon Lewis, Frank Kenny and Phil Baker, who was here, by the way. I don't know if you saw Phil Baker was at the back of the chamber here. I was brought in as one of the attack dogs. It's all starting to make sense to you now, isn't it? However, even though Councillor Aspinall and I and Councillor Kendall and I would spar across the chamber on a regular basis, the one person that I always failed to be able to open both barrels up to was Councillor Vicky Davis, because she was and remains a thoroughly decent individual. Not saying the others aren't, but she was always... See what I did there? She was always, and has remained so, delightful to me, despite the fact that we've always been on the opposite side of the political divide. And even though I left this chamber 10 years ago, in 2015, when I retired, we've remained in contact and I think remained friends. So I just want to pay tribute to her because she is a thoroughly decent and impressive individual. I wish you well.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And first comments. So, Councillor Aspinall. No one else indicated to speak. Councillor Aspinall, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I'm being told, nagged, just move it, just move it. She doesn't want to be embarrassed anymore, so I move that recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. We will now vote on the recommendations on page 39 of the agenda. Recommendation 1, that Councillor Worsfold is appointed as Deputy Leader of the Council for the remainder of the municipal year. My apologies. All those in favour? Thank you very much. The motion is carried.
Mr Mayor, would it be appropriate if I could just say, just take a minute to say a few words? Thank you. I'm grateful for the support across the chamber. I will do my best. I was sitting there listening to the tributes, every word of which was justified, that were paid to Councillor Davis for her service as Deputy Leader, and thinking, well, I'm never going to live up to that. So, Vicky, and I've said this to you before, you've set the bar so high that this is going to be a difficult job. It's not going to be easy. I'm looking forward to working with Councillor Barrett. I'm not sure about the mother figure part of it. I'm struggling with that one a little bit. Maybe I can be your favourite uncle or something. I love being labelled the youth wing. That suits me down to the ground. That's actually the second time that's happened to me in a month. I was at a conference at the Association of European Journalists at the European Parliament a couple of weeks ago, and it was very noticeable that the delegation from other countries were actually considerably older than myself, and someone referred to me as the youth wing of the AEJ, which I took with great gratitude, and you know, I will nurture that concept. Thank you, Councillor Quirk, for damning me with faint praise. I hope that I can grow a little bit in respect and aspire to the sort of regard that you quite rightly held Councillor Davis in. All I can say is I will do my best. I think over the 2.5 years that I've been on the council, I think people have got to know me. They know I'm approachable. You know where I am. I will always try and give you an honest answer, even if it's not the answer you want to hear, or even if it's not the answer I really want to give you. It will be the honest one. But thank you very much for the honour of electing me as Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Worsfold. Now, item 9, revised allocation of seats and appointments of committees. The report begins on page 43 of the agenda. Mrs Mayhew, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to draw members' attention to the chart on page 50. Under licensing, it actually indicates that there's 0 seats go to the independent group. That should actually be 1. And no seats actually go to reform. And planning, the seat under independent group should be 0 and the seat should go to reform. This will be amended and attached to the appendix to the minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr Mayhew. Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendations, please? You have 5 minutes to speak.
Mr Mayor, I therefore move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Worsfold?
Yes, sir, happy to second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. We'll now Move to the debate. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to record my thanks actually and gratitude to Councillor Mrs Murphy and to Councillor Mrs Marsh. There seems to be some ridiculous anomaly, not on our part as a council, but nationally, whereby a political group has to be 2 people, not 1 person, and as a consequence, the lack of being in a group means that you can't, therefore, take up your correct political balance split of committee seats. So I just want to say thank you very much, sincerely, my gratitude to Councillor Mrs Murphy and to Councillor Mrs Marsh for donating me a planning seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Quirk. Would anyone have no one else indicating to speak? Oh, Councillor Barber.
Mr Mayor, can I just place on record my thanks to Councillor Naylor for the way that he chaired the scrutiny committee over the year. He's always been extremely fair, and I'm sure Councillor Haigh will be equally fair, but he did it with great achievement. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Councillor Barber. No one else indicating to speak? Councillor Aspinall. Oh, no, if Councillor Worsfold, you reserve the right to speak?
Happy not to say anything. I think we know where we're going with this.
Thank you, Councillor Worsfold. Councillor Aspinall?
Absolutely. Recommend it for approval.
Thank you for the brevity. We will now move to the vote on recommendations on page 43 of the agenda. Recommendation 1, that the allocation of seats as set out on Appendix A to the report be approved. Recommendation 2, that the nominations for the political groups to the committees are set out in Appendix B to the report be approved. Recommendation 3, the Chair of Strategy, Performance and Standards are set out in Appendix B to the report to be appointed. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 10, honorary titles. The report begins on page 59 of the agenda. Mrs Mayhew, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to draw members' attention to the recommendations on page 59. I've removed recommendation 3 and now this forms part of recommendation 1 and recommendation 2 in light of the legislation. So it will say it will be recommended to a special meeting of council. That is going to be put at the front of recommendation 1 and 2, but the rest stays the same. Okay?
Thank you, Mrs Mayhew. I will take these recommendations separately. For the recommendation 1, Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendation, please?
Certainly, Mr Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that this council offers the honorary title of Freeman of the Borough to Barry Hearn, a long-time resident of this borough, but also world-renowned promoter in various sports engagements that has his headquarters in Brentwood, still at Brook Street, where Matchroom is. And I could go on now about the many attributes that Matchroom has brought to Brentwood and all the achievements that have been around through that, but now is not the time for that. It's simply to recommend that this name goes forward. When that has been agreed by the recipient, should we vote on it now, then we will have a special meeting where more virtues of this person will be rolled out by me or someone speaking on my behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Do you have a seconder? I believe it's Councillor Parker.
Yes, I'd like to second the leader's motion. Strangely, I've known Barry for a number of years through mutual friends and business. In fact, we both started off in Rockford, and my late son used to service his cars. What I didn't know was his middle name was Morris, but there we go. Offering the freedom of the borough is, I believe, something this council should be proud and eager to do. We have a number of freemen who have been awarded for their efforts for the borough and their charities, but we haven't, I don't believe, had a chance to award this to an entrepreneur who started from ground up, or shall we say Green Bay's up, to where he's reached, the pinnacle he's reached now. I think in one of his speeches he did say that people would be surprised that, and I can't remember the number, but it was well over 365 events that they put on a year, which people queried, and they said, well, no, we do more than one a day. We do 2 or 3 a day in various places. So the numbers are large. He's well known in Brentwood. He's well known in Essex. He's well known countrywide, and it's an international company that he runs. I'm very glad that we're making this offer to him now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. No one else indicating they wish to speak on this item? So move to Councillor Aspinall. If you...
Mr Mayor, I'll just move.
We'll now vote on recommendation 1 on page 59 and 60 of the agenda. It be recommended a special meeting of council that in pursuance of section 249(5) of the Local Government Act 1972 and in recognition of being a person of distinction and a person who has, in the opinion of the council, rendered eminent services to the borough, the council admits Barry Morris William Hearn, OBE, to the honorary freeman, to be honorary freeman of the borough. All those for? Thanks, Ms. Foss. The motion is carried. Now for recommendation 2. Councillor Barrett, will you move the recommendation, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am delighted to propose that Fatima Whitbread be granted the honorary title of Free Woman of the Borough of Brentwood. Fatima is known to many as an Olympic icon. She's a 2-time Olympic medalist, a world and European champion, and the first British athlete ever to set a world record in a throwing event when she threw an unforgettable 77 and a bit metres at the 1986 European Championships. The fact I was 2 and I know about it says a lot about her achievement. But frankly, her achievements of an athlete are actually a very, very small part of her story. Fatima's journey began as a child in care, facing the harsh realities that far too many young people endure today: physical, mental and sexual abuse, instability and the chronic failings of an overstretched care system. Across the UK, 110,000 children are in care and there is a shortage of foster carers. At just 18, many care leavers find themselves thrust into adulthood without the support, savings or networks they need. 1 in 3 experience homelessness. Fatima posed a powerful question to all of us, and she said, would we accept this for our own children? And the answer is no, and she has dedicated her life to ensuring that no care leaver is left without hope, dignity or a voice. Her UK campaign, headquartered here in Brentwood, stands at the forefront of that mission, focused on financial stability, long-term opportunity and resilience. Her work is already changing the national conversation. In April, she led the UK's first ever National Care Summit, bringing together 110 speakers and more than 750 stakeholders from health, housing, education, sport, business, the arts, technology. It was an inspiring demonstration of what can be achieved when sectors unite and share purpose. From this vision have come her pioneering action hubs, wrap-around local authority hubs and pathfinders, practical, trauma-informed models that providing this education, mentoring, stable housing and transport, routes into meaningful employment, and strong partnerships with local charities and employers. This is real, structured change, and Brentwood is at its heart because of Fatima. Fatima's commitment to our borough is deep. At Brentwood School, she recently hosted the Power of Resilience, supporting both her campaign and the Brentwood School Foundation. At King George's Playing Field, she organised the Day of Inspiration for Cared for Children, bringing joy, confidence and motivation to more than 100 young people. Earlier this year, she visited Brentwood Ursuline to share her own story in the message of her children's book, My Bright Shining Star, with all proceeds supporting care leavers. Fatima Whitbread's life is marked not only by world-class sporting achievements, but by immense personal courage and an unwavering commitment to improving lives. She embodies the very essence of distinction and public service that this honour represents. At the same time, on a very personal level, she is a Brentwood person. I first met Fatima Whitbread when I was serving her in Tesco Express with my first job. And it was a weird scenario to find someone who you'd seen on TV, who was a celebrity, was his athlete, was his hero, be beyond humble to ask why I was, what's happening with her shopping. And she realised that I was basically staring at her, trying to work out why someone famous was in Tesco Express on London Road. But at the same time, that normality hides an absolute exceptionalism, which I believe in every way justifies her being made a free woman of the Borough of Brentwood, and I hope you can support that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Murphy.
I'm very, very happy to second Fatima Whitbread's nomination. Trying to follow Councillor Barrett when he's on one of his stories is very difficult. But I'll just say a couple of words that I read about that she said. Some credit for my choice of sport must go to the javelin itself. It's not only a magical event, it is a beautiful one. The flight of the javelin is a glorious sight, and as I very soon discovered, letting go was a fantastic feeling. She's a very, very, very deserved person to recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Russell, you speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor. Really, I just think on both of them are very much deserving of these honorary titles, their commitment, their investment into the borough, and their friendship of this council. For that alone, they deserve them. But I also just want to thank the administration for being so generous so that we may share in supporting this tonight. So I'd like to thank you for that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Wagner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me just to add a couple of quick words. I think along with her amazing international and national interests on a grand scale involving particularly the issues around children in care, and I would note that this council, I think, was inspired in many ways by her to adopt the fostering fair, friendly policies that it did quite recently, which I think echo the co-parenting role that applies if you're a county councillor and will apply to those who become unitary councillors in due course. But I thought it also important to remember that she is also very much a local Brentwood person. And so I'm fortunate enough that she's one of mine, and indeed of Councillors Gordon and Sankey. But in that, she has been front and centre of the community on so many causes, and I particularly remember her championing our campaign to keep our station staff when somebody had the bright idea that that wasn't going to follow, and the way in which she has helped with everything that has been Ingatestone in particular, and the station, its history, and the involvement of people in being active, and is regularly seen running throughout the area. And all of those things make her, I think, just exceptionally valuable in ways that go beyond the ones that we've identified, and I just wanted to say so. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Councillor Wagner. No one else indicating to speak, so we will now vote on recommendation 2 on page 59 of the agenda. Sorry, Councillor Bob, did you indicate to speak? Thank you. Recommendation 2, it would be recommended by a special meeting of council that in pursuance of section 249 brackets 5 of the Local Government Act 1972, and in recognition of being a person of distinction and a person who has, in the opinion of the Council, rendered eminent services to the Borough, the Council admits Fatima Whitbread, MBE, to be honorary free woman of the Borough. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Pardon. Item 11, Strategic Housing Delivery Programme. The report begins on page 63 of the agenda. The appendix to this report is in pink. I would like to keep the debate in public session, so I'd ask you not to refer to details in the appendix. Should we need to discuss items from the appendix, I will ask for a vote to go into private session. Thank you. So I can discard this. Ms. Stretch, anything to add?
Nothing to add, but happy to take questions. I'm not sure whether Councillor Barrett wanted to say anything.
Councillor Dr Barrett, will you move recommendations, please?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Yes, very happy to move these recommendations. We are moving forward with the Strategic Housing Development Programme. The Harewood development will deliver another 40 affordable council homes. Together with the 62 started at Brookfield Close, we're delivering more than 100 new council homes for Brentwood families. This is 20 times more than the council was built in Brentwood over the past 3 decades. I'd like to thank Mr Underwood and the whole SHDP officer team for getting us to this stage on our 3rd SHD programme to get going. I'm looking forward to putting another spade in the ground on this one and look forward to cutting the ribbon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr Barrett. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Davies.
I'd second that, Mr Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Now move to debate. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mayor. I'd like to say really that it's a great work been done on this across the chamber throughout the various officers that have been involved with this. Gary White, my number 2 from a couple of years back in September 22, was moving this forward. We set the bench very high, and sometimes it's okay not to hit that mark. Anything on the way there is a great result. So there's still work to be done with Ingleton House, Sir Francis Way. I noticed on the application today that's moving forward. The Four Oaks and the garage sites. There's work to be done, and there's no criticism there from me. We did set the bench very high. So everything that we achieve on that way is a result for the borough, the residents of the borough. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved across the chamber and all the officers that have been involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. With no one else indicating to speak, Councillor Dr Barrett, would you like to... Councillor Davies, I beg your pardon, you reserve your right to speak.
Mr Mayor, I want to endorse thanks given to the officers. I don't think anybody really realises how much work and time and consideration to the residents has been given to actually reach this stage. I mean, it's been delayed because of COVID, which was disappointing. But to know that we're going to produce quality homes for residents of Brentwood, I think is something that this council should be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Dr Barrett.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now vote on recommendations on page 63 and 64 of the agenda. Recommendation 1, that the Council approves the award of contract for the construction of Harewood Road regeneration site as detailed within the appendix of the report. Recommendation 2, that the Council grant delegated authority to the Strategic Director Deputy Chief Executive, Commercial and Regeneration, in consultation with the Chair of HHC Committee, Director of Housing, Chief Legal Officer and Section 151 Officer, to negotiate and agree final terms and enter into a JCT design and built contract on the Harewood Road regeneration site, subject to the conditions set out in appendices and as detailed in this report. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 12, Corporate Peer Challenge Action Update. The report begins on page 71 of the agenda. Mr. Campbell, anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members. Nothing further really to update, but this was following an LGA Local Government Association review back in March 2024, followed up by a further review in November 2024. From that, there was a number of actions that were proposed to us that we have followed through. There were 9 actions in total, 8 of which have been complete. 4 of those have become business as usual, and 1 of those actions is due to be complete in February at committee. The report is before you for noting. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Councillor Aspinall, would you move recommendations, please?
Certainly pleased to move other recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Waterman.
So I'm happy to second it and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I've no one. Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just actually regarding one of the actions. It's action number 9 on page 88. It states that SAL is looking at their internal structure. Following this, the council can conclude its view on the Holly Company report reported to the February 26 Finance and Resource Committee. However, looking at the calendar, there is no meeting scheduled in February. The meeting's scheduled in January. And in addition to that, could I request that this report will be available for the SAL AGM that's due to be held next year?
Councillor Kendall, would you like to answer that question?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Just to allay any concerns Councillor Slade has, there is a Finance and Resources meeting. It's on the 18th of February. Okay, definitely happening. And there's a number of items going to it, including the car parking strategy, and I'm sure a decision regarding sale. Just whilst we're on sale, we had a discussion on sale at the last F&R meeting at a close of business, and a number of members obviously opposite were there. I know there are some questions that members opposite still have that they're going to put in writing. We're waiting for those, I believe, still to come through. When they come through, obviously officers will look at those, and then we'll have a further discussion. My understanding is the AGM will be taking place early in the new year, but obviously we need to resolve some of those questions before we have the AGM. But the idea is, on recommendation 9, as it says, is to take it to the February meeting and hopefully we move forward on the sale issue. Thank you.
It's just a point of order, thank you, but just to let you know that the council calendar doesn't show a meeting on February 18th. That's not...
That's noted, Councillor Slade, and it will be added to the calendar. I've no one else indicating to speak, so therefore I'll go back to Councillor Worsfold. You reserve your right to speak.
I'd just like to thank the officers for the work that they've done on this and progressing it. The peer review, I remember reading it and thinking this has put its finger on quite a few key issues about how we operate as a council, particularly how we make the one team work more efficiently, and to see all of that actioned so efficiently and so quickly, I think is very gratifying. So thanks to the officers for making sure that has happened.
Thank you, Councillor Worsfold. Councillor Aspinall, you must sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. We'll now move to a vote on recommendations on page 71 of the agenda. Recommendation 1. Members are asked to note that the final report on the progress against the CPC Action Plan Appendix A. All those for? Thank you. Item 13, update regarding local government reorganisation. The report begins on page 89 of the agenda. Mrs Nicholson, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just one addition. Since the report was prepared, the Government has made an announcement regarding devolution impacts Greater Essex, as well as Hampshire and the Solent, Norfolk and Suffolk, and Sussex and Brighton. On the 4th of December, the Government announced it's minded to postpone the mayoral election in Greater Essex, originally scheduled for May 2026, will now be May 2028. The rationale given for this was that the Government wants to make sure strong foundations are in place ahead of devolution, allowing time for areas to complete the reorganisation process before mayors take office. The Council is working collectively with councils across Greater Essex to understand the implications of this new timetable and what it means to the region. Future updates on this matter will be reported alongside the proposed quarterly LGR update to the Assets, Projects and Strategy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Nicholson. Is it a point of order you require, Councillor Hurst?
A point of personal clarification with relation to potential conflict of interest, if I may please, Mr Mayor. It's quite, the officer recently just mentioned the change in mayoral election. I don't think it's actually relevant to the votes that we're going to take here on this item, or indeed on the notice of motion in future, because I don't think we're actually debating the mayoral election itself, but I should declare that the timing of the mayoral election would have a direct personal interest in me, given that it would affect the term of my role as Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for the county. I don't believe it's relevant to any of these. Personally, I actually quite like to see the mayoral elections go ahead on the original schedule anyway, even though that would curtail my term of office. But nevertheless, I don't think it's part of what we're voting on this evening, and therefore I do not intend to exclude myself from the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Agreed, I think. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So, Councillor Aspinall, do you have a point of clarification, or we can wait for the debate? So, Councillor Aspinall, you move
points
recommendations.
of clarification, Mr Mayor. Just to agree with it. At the beginning of this whole event of local government reform and devolution, I could not see the sense of electing a mayor before we've got the unitaries in place, because what the government are asking us to do is to have a devolved mayor in consultation with combined authorities. So, working with combined authorities, unless those combined authorities are in place, the mayor has nobody to work with. So I could not understand that. There's an awful amount, a lot of money being spent by the county council and others in setting up and looking for premises and people to administer the mayor's office. And that obviously won't go to waste, because that will be just deferred for 2 years, just. But I understand the rationale behind it and agree with it entirely, and I'll refer this item to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to second this item and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. We will now move to the debate. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question, but first of all, it has to be said that the postponement of democracy, I mean, as per the old saying about justice delayed is justice denied, I think it's an absolute outrage. And I know there's nothing in this chamber that we can do about it, but the fact that the Labour government have decided to kick the mayor elections into the long grass by not 1 but 2 years, I think is absolutely disgraceful. There is no need whatsoever for that postponement, except as a political party, as Labour are, you're running scared, frankly, of what is coming along the tracks electorally in terms of Reform, my party, cleaning up insofar as the mayoral elections and indeed probably county and indeed borough. And I know we'll come back to that a little bit later. So that's my point that I feel I absolutely have to make, and hopefully everybody in the Chamber agrees that elections should not be postponed, although I note that the Conservatives on Essex County Council, of course, last year did indeed postpone elections. I think that was disgraceful and unnecessary too. But I have a question, and the question actually probably might be best answered by the Chief Executive, I suspect. Obviously, we don't know yet the configuration of the unitary arrangement in 2028. Obviously, the government are going to make their decision in March, whether it be 3, 4, 5 unitaries in Essex or otherwise. They've consulted. I'm not sure that they're going to take much notice of that. They're going to do what they want to do regardless. But my question is this. We as a council, I think, are in a reasonably decent shape from a financial perspective, particularly because of some asset deals that have been done, as I understand it, over the last few years. What is going to happen if we amalgamate as a council with others that have debt? So, for instance, Basildon and Thurrock. Now, no, none of the suggested arrangements include us partnering with either of those two authorities. But Thurrock Council, under the previous Conservative administration, was £1 billion in debt. Basildon Council, under the current Labour administration, is £700 million in debt. So, with the cash, the profits, if you like, that are in our bank account, due to the hard work of everybody in this chamber, is there a danger that we end up, from our taxpayers' perspective, effectively giving away our hard-earned cash and saddling ourselves with the debt of other local authorities, regardless of whether we end up with a 3, 4 or 5 unitary position?
Thank you, Councillor Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Clerk. So, we have a question I can only answer on based on what I know with regard to what's gone before us. In Surrey, as you know, Surrey have just had their announcement that they're looking to have 2 unitary councils, and the government and the Treasury have taken into account Woking's debt, and they offered 500 million to support that over a number of years. At present, the Treasury have said they will look at Thurrock's debt, their non-asset-backed debt, the debt that needs dealing with, that's about 700 million. And they have reduced that down, but the government haven't come back with an answer, and we're still waiting for that. Ideally, it would have been helpful ahead of the expression of interest that all of us put in for business case for Essex. With regard to the amalgamation of debt and current debt, that will happen as part of the segregation of all those 15 councils going into 3, 4 or 5, and there'll be benefits there with assets that some have got and debt that others have got. What's gone before us normally is there hasn't been a government bailout for any of that debt that's in the system outside of the Thurrock debt. That could be different. The Secretary of State and the Minister might make a different decision, but they haven't done that in Surrey other than the Woking debt. So that's all I can say based on sort of what's happened has gone before us and what they've announced so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you for the report. Very good report. It's one of those keepers that I like to take out the file, and I'll refer to it as and when. It's a very good report. Thank you very much. I cannot support it, I'm afraid. As you know, I don't flip-flop around R2. I can't support because it mentions the 5 unitary model, which I've mentioned time and time again that I'm not happy with. So for that reason, I can't support it. But I appreciate. I can say. To R1, I note the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This subject has occupied our attention before, and doubtless it will do again. It's not going to go away, and I'm sure we are all eagerly anticipating what the new Minister will have for us in the new year. Hopefully that decision will occur in May. Delay would be unfortunate, and so whatever our fate is, I think we hope that we will find out early in the spring. There is an active government consultation on the various options before the public. I have a healthy degree of realism about how those consultations are filled and completed, but nonetheless, the option is there for residents to state their views, should they so wish, on the options that are available. And I would encourage all residents to visit the website and complete the questionnaire that's available there so that government can know their views. I know the council, for example, is promoting completion of the questionnaire, and similarly Essex County Council is also encouraging people to respond to that consultation. That's the right and proper thing to do, and I would encourage all members to encourage their residents in their ward to follow suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's actually just to make the Chamber aware regarding the LGR timeline. It states that vesting day, unitary councils come out of the shadow and existing councils are simultaneously abolished, and that's scheduled for the 1st of April 28, a month before the mayoralty elections and during PERDA. So I just thought that's a relevant point to make to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, my position hasn't changed from the last meeting where it was minuted that I oppose local government reform. I do not believe that local government reform is going to either improve service in the medium term or save any money, and I've never been asked for it on the door by any resident who says they really want just one council. Because of the same reason Councillor Russell outlined, that recommendation 2 is based on aligning with the full council position of supporting a 5 unitary authority. Whether it was a 4 or 3, I'd oppose it on principle, so I won't be supporting this. And I hope that that is correctly reflected across social media by those that like to tweet and post on a regular basis, that some of us do make our own mind up based on the facts. So I would be opposing this motion.
Anybody else indicating to speak? Right. Thank you. Councillor Barrett, you reserve your right to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And first off, thank you to the officers for this report and the continued work of the policy team in responding to the consultations, the issues that are arising, the further work that appears, and also to note it's quite interesting that all 4 models went forward to a consultation, which to an extent for me indicates, regrettably for us, our officer team are really quite good in the Rochford proposal that I hope would fall away, has actually gone to government full consultation. In retrospect, a little less competence may have been helpful for our policy position. But I think it's also worth noting, as we go forward, as we have the direction of travel, it's worth recognising that whatever happens, right now, Brentwood as a borough is a net contributor to Essex County Council. We get less back than we put in to Essex County Council. In any of the reorganisation models that are put forward, the new unitary that Brentwood would be part of will actually gain from this. At the very least, we're less of a net contributor. Actually, we should have a net benefit back to us because we hold that tax income that Brentwood residents pay to spend on their new unitary rather than often subsidising councils in other parts of the borough. I think that's a real advantage we have to recognise, and actually be able to have more of our money spent locally is a very positive thing. Overall, as progress goes on in local government reform, it is undoubtedly exceptionally challenging, and I think I mentioned this last time, for all of us, whether we like this, whether we don't like this, whether we do like the pace, whether we don't like the pace. And I think I've been on record that I wasn't keen on Essex deciding to go earlier than others. I think that was a mistake. But nevertheless, all of us reflect the shared trauma. The amount of effort and time all of us have put into this borough and for it to end is very sad. And Councillor Quirk reflected. My first year in the chamber was with him at this side of the chamber. Having Councillor Baker, it felt like a 10-year flashback when I had more hair and it was less grey. And I was somewhat more optimistic about the world. Time has moved on, a time of change, but nevertheless, I think all of us will have to reflect that losing Brentwood in whatever circumstances is a sad day for all of us. But at the same time, we all must be ambitious about what that means for our residents, and actually, whatever comes next, be just as determined to deliver every single day for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I share all of those sentiments. And from the other side, as I said, when this was first launched upon us last year, my first thought is to Brentwood. My first action is for Brentwood. My last action in this chamber will be for Brentwood. I wanted to work with our colleagues throughout Essex to achieve the best possible outcome for Brentwood. At the moment, that looks like option 5 for the 5UA. And to that end, we have been progressing week on week, and I promise you it's been week on week, sometimes daily in terms of messages and team meetings, as well as actual face-to-face meetings throughout this last 9 months. It has been strenuous, and it has been, in one regard, it's been welcomed and uplifting to see that so many people feel like me, feel like Gareth, feel like Vicky, where we're putting our borough, our district, our city first and working together to achieve the best outcome we possibly can from a very bad situation. I don't want LGR, never have done. I'm not sure I want devolution. I'm not a devolved person. Therefore, but I believe that there needs to be some form of change going forward. As Gareth said, we have had so many problems with Essex trying to get the best for our residents and failing on a regular basis. There has to be a change. I don't like this change. I don't like it being forced upon us, and I think we should be the masters of our own destiny, but unfortunately we're not. This is the best of a bad outcome that we can achieve. So therefore, I note the details like the Leader of the Opposition. I note them. I don't agree with them, but I note them. I'm here.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. We will now vote on the recommendations on page 90 of the agenda. Recommendation 1, that the Council notes the LGR activity undertaken since the 15th of September 2025 to date, and notes that a quarterly LGR report including a risk register be made to the Assets, Projects and Strategy Committee. Recommendation 2, that the Council delegate authority to the Strategic Director responsible for policy and transformation in consultation with the Leader of the Council to submit a response to the MHCLG consultation on local government reorganisation in Essex, Southend-on-Sea and Thurrock, which aligns with the full Council decision made on the 15th of September 2025 to support a 5 unitary authority proposal. All those for? Against? Abstain? The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Mr. Mayor, could I just repeat the personal point of clarification I made for the last item, so it's noted in the minutes. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Item 14, notion of motions. 2 notices of motion have been submitted in accordance with Rule 3 in Part 4.1 of the Constitution. Council procedure rules and are listed in order of date received. As the mover of the first motion, Councillor Russell, could you please introduce your notice of motion, please? You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't need 5 minutes. All the details in there. This is not about any particular instance, as far as I'm concerned, but a recognition that there are some changes that need to be made in regards to referring matters to committee. I actually feel for the chair that there's a lot of big decisions that he has to make, and I think it's unfair that they should make that decision on their own. I think that members should be allowed to refer matters to committee without that veto from the chair. I've had it so many times in the past where a resident has come to me and said, you know, how comes I've been refused when so-and-so down so-and-so road, they got an approval. And when I say we can refer it to a committee and that doesn't happen, they feel it's unjust. There are other points to this motion that my colleagues will touch on, but that's mainly the thrust for me is being able to recommend ward members recommending items, planning applications to the planning committee without the veto of the chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second the motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Quirk, you've indicated to speak.
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I will be supporting this motion. I think, as Councillor Russell is very aware, he and I had correspondence on this. Look, we are either a democracy in Brentwood and in Brentwood Council, or we're not. And it is not just a democratic right, but also a democratic responsibility for members of this chamber to be able to represent their residents correctly. And if residents have issues with contentious planning applications, they should be able to call upon their elected representative to help them do something about that and at least give it a fair airing in a democratic environment at planning committee. Planning is supposed to not be political. However, what we have here, I'm afraid, maybe by accident, maybe it was engineered, is a situation where the administration and one person in that administration, whoever the chairman of the planning committee is at the time, can arbitrarily decide which planning applications are seen and heard by planning committee and which are not. The Constitution is also very, very vague indeed. There is no test, no legal test, insofar as how or why the planning chair, or in his or her absence, the deputy chair, can refuse or accept a referral. There is no test at all. Now, I know there is some work ongoing insofar as this being reviewed, but I would actually go a bit further than Councillor Russell. In his motion, in the first paragraph, he suggests that this should be a matter of review and then implementation. I think councillors in this chamber have the power tonight, democratically, to immediately move that this changes straight away. In other words, that we move, and I'd like Councillor Russell's permission to maybe amend his motion, that from this point going forward, subject to a vote in this chamber now, any member, any ward member, should be permitted to refer any planning application to the committee. Thank you.
Order. Point of order. Right to speak again. 8.3.6d. Mayor. Yeah, I thank you, Councillor Quirk. I did put my original motion forward to that sentiment, but it was told that it would not be allowed, so I had to reword it, the phrase it the way it was. Thank you.
Sorry, point of clarification. What are we meaning not allowed? We are members of Brentwood Borough Council. What are we meaning not allowed?
Mr. Mayor, I'll refer to the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, amendments to the Constitution go through the Constitution Working Group, then recommendations then come to Council to be approved. As the monitoring officer, I can only make slight amendments and think legislation amendments and errors, spelling errors, numbers in committee errors, things that are agreed tonight, but I can't change planning procedure in the Constitution without going through the Constitution Working Group.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, a point of whatever, information, clarity, whatever. I'm confused as to why members of this council on behalf of the residents of Brentwood can't just lay down a motion, debate it and vote upon it as I've suggested as a slight amendment. Why does it have to be tweaked or adjusted rather than it just being in its purest form as laid down by members of this council?
The methodology of changes to the Constitution is performed via the Constitutional Working Group. That will be proposed, they will write and formulate that in an appropriate manner and then bring that back to Chamber to be ratified by the Council. So it does happen. I don't think we have enough detail in here to go through all the tenets of that, and so it's not appropriate for that to be taken directly without moving through the consultation working group, as it is, this particular action is already formed part of the work being appropriated by the...
Mr Mayor, sorry, the
Constitution
is there at the behest of the residents of Brentwood and this council.
No, Councillor Quirk, we're not going to debate this.
No, we are.
We're not
debating it.
We are not. I'm the chair of this meeting,
Yeah,
so
I
if you please
understand
sit
that,
down
and I'm also an
listen to
elected
me.
member of this council.
You are,
I want a better
but we are
explanation
not
as
going
to why we
to...
cannot now make the decision based on a motion that I am suggesting. I haven't had a satisfactory explanation.
No, we do not. You have had an explanation. Well, if you're unsatisfied, I'm sorry for that. But the method by which the decisions of this nature is made has already been consulted. Councillor Russell made appropriate approach to the monitoring officer, and we're proceeding as such. So I note your dissatisfaction, but it's going to proceed as we've indicated.
And sorry, my satisfaction. Well, I'm just asking. Point of order, then. My dissatisfaction will be minuted, I hope.
I beg your pardon?
The dissatisfaction that I've just expressed will be minuted, I hope.
Certainly. Councillor Barrett.
Two items of note, Mr Mayor. Firstly, for the purpose of Councillor Quirk, the Constitution sets out a clear process that must be followed for constitutional change that requires it goes to the CWG before Council. We'd have to, ironically, we'd have to send it to CWG to request that change rule that we could change it ourselves before that. The reason for that is to make sure everything is effectively legal and formatted in the correct language. I hope that answers it slightly more satisfactorily from your purposes. There is a clear legal process, hence why we can't do it tonight. It has to go to CWG, be confirmed, and then if CWG agrees with this concept, it then returns to Council for a full vote. On that note, I can't remember the name of the procedural rule, but I believe there's a procedural rule where we can ask that this item be referred to another place. I would therefore ask to activate this and just have this item immediately referred to CWG, and I don't necessarily believe I need a vote on that. I believe the Mayor can agree to it, and it so happens. If that is correct from the monitoring officer, can we just do that? Because that moves us on and actually gets us to whether we can actually hear this and vote on it as a council. Is that correct, Mrs Mayhew?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Barrett, yes, that is correct. You can move and refer to a different committee or a different body.
Sorry, should we not debate it first before we at least agree to refer, please?
The work is being done as part of the works that's already laid out within the CWG. I agree with Councillor Barrett that this is being moved to another committee and it's going to be dealt with sufficiently. So I agree that this can be taken as per the recommendation and moved to the CWG for further discussion. So an amendment to a motion must be relevant to the motion and will either be to refer the matter to an appropriate body or an individual for consideration or reconsideration. So, based upon that recommendation, I'll move it to go straight to CWG. So, thank you, Councillor Russell. Thank you, Mr. Chamber. For the second motion, an amended version has been tabled in front of you this evening. As the mover of the second motion, Councillor Horsfeld, could you please introduce your notice of motion? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. The amended motion, which I hope everyone has got. This motion does go to the heart of democratic accountability in Brentwood and across Essex. Our electoral timetable has become a moving target, and that isn't good for democracy. We all know that the Essex County Council elections, originally scheduled for last year, were delayed by a year, and they've now been scheduled for next May. That is welcome, if a year late. But in the last week, the inaugural election for the Mayor of Greater Essex, previously scheduled for next May, has been delayed by 2 years to 2028. Taken together, these changes raise understandable questions for our residents, who frankly deserve clarity and certainty about how and when they will be able to exercise their democratic rights. I can assure Councillor Quirk that I was badgering my colleagues long before I got news of his proposal for us to take a very clear stand on this important issue at this council meeting. So I was running ahead of you on this one, I'm afraid. So let's be clear, absolutely clear. Elections are the foundation of legitimate accountability for local government. They are the mechanism by which the public renews, redirects or removes those who serve them. When election dates change, almost, it seems, by ministerial whim, confidence can easily be undermined. And as we stand, as we've heard already, on the cusp of a major reorganisation of local government, we cannot afford that loss of faith in democratic accountability. Frankly, it plays into the hands of those already working to undermine our democracy and the freedoms that it protects. That's why we welcome the recent statements regarding the county and borough elections. They are encouraging, but we need certainty. So let's be clear, we call on the government to confirm plainly and unambiguously that elections in Brentwood scheduled for 2026 will proceed exactly as expected. Nothing less will do. Our residents must not be left in limbo, and we must be able to plan effectively for an efficient and smooth election. The sudden deferral of the mayoral election is very disappointing. Now, there may be a certain logic, and Councillor Aspinall referred to this, in putting the new unitaries in place, the foundations in place, before putting the mayor in place, before putting the pinnacle there. That logic may have been clear to some of us, but it obviously wasn't to those in Whitehall corridors. But we've been led up the garden path on this, whether we accept that logic or not. We've all parties have spent time and money on getting mayoral candidates in place. That money's been wasted now, that time has been wasted. That's an affront to the democratic process. But we do recognise that this delay presents an opportunity to put better democratic structures and procedures in place. We welcome the chance to make legislative changes so that the election can be held under the fairer supplementary vote system. Ministers have suggested that that is one of the reasons why they're delaying it. We welcome that, and we want to see that delivered. And a mayor who will wield substantial executive authority, let's be clear, should be elected with majority support, not on a mere plurality. That's not good enough. It's going to have major powers devolved, and there must be someone in post elected by the majority of the population of Essex. And the supplementary vote system is sensible and balanced, and it's widely understood. It's been used before. And while we urge this for the mayoral contest, we also call for a similar, fairer voting system for the elections to the proposed new unitary authorities. If we're going to be reforming local government, we should do it properly and comprehensively, and we should seize this chance to make its democratic foundations even stronger. So finally, Mr Mayor, the motion commits the Council to doing everything within its power to safeguard the democratic rights of our residents. At the moments of institutional change, the public must be able to trust that their voice still matters. We're sending a clear signal. Brentwood Borough Council stands firmly on the side of democratic certainty, democratic fairness and democratic participation.
Thank you, Councillor Warsworth. Spot on. You have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Minor.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I second it and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Now move to the debate with Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I must be indicating early. First one up every time. Lovely, thank you. I welcome this amendment to the previous motion that was brought to us. I also thank the administration for giving me a little chance to input into this motion. I did have an amendment ready for the previous version because I thought it just needed a little tweak to make it stronger. And the last sentence of that paragraph, Council expects elections to proceed appropriately, is the key point that I wanted to make, that you know, there's no two ways about it. We want the elections in Brentwood. We are Democrats in this chamber largely, I believe, and I can understand that during COVID, things like that, there are understandable reasons for delaying elections. But I can't see one now. I can't see one. And yeah, we're just going to get into this habit of just delaying elections, and another government comes in and they say, well, they did it, so why don't we do it, etc. And, you know, it could start to be a bit of a strategy, which, you know, I think is a big mistake. This is a strong motion. This is a, if Carlsberg made motions, then, you know, I'd say that this is it. This is strong. There's it's a doing motion. There's a lot of content and notes, and this is what we've come to expect in this chamber over the years. So I thank you for bringing this forward. People mention about the cost of elections. I think, you know, there is a price to democracy, and we budget that cost every year. So, you know, it's not going to be a saving by not having elections. You know, that's all budgeted for. Yeah, I welcome it. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it, and happy to vote on it.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It will be no surprise that I quite like this motion. The reason being, it's mine. Councillor Worsfold says that he predated my attempts to have this motion put forward to this council. Now, obviously, at the moment, I'm a sole reform councillor, probably not for that much longer, but as a consequence, I need a seconder for motions, and as most in the chamber are aware, I did seek from the Conservatives, the Independents and the Liberal Democrats a seconder for a motion that was pretty much the same as this, but no one would second it. So I can't wait to see how everybody votes in a minute, because you would imagine that if members in this chamber do agree with the premise of local democracy and having elections on time by way of legislation and in keeping with the democratic mandate that exists, that they would have seconded and supported my motion in the first place. In terms of timing, I submitted my request to the various groups in this council on the 17th of November. I noticed, Councillor Worsfold, that you submitted your motion a full 4 days later. But anyway, let's gloss over who was first and get to the substance of this. I do support the premise. What I do not support is what effectively here is proportional representation, which of course, you know, helps smaller parties like the Liberal Democrats. So I will be supporting this, but with the huge caveat that I do not support what is effectively an alternative vote mechanism. We had a referendum on that in 2011, ladies and gentlemen, and you lost it. So first past the post will always win it for me. So glad to see this here. Thank you very much for the copy and paste. I felt a bit like I was having my homework copied, frankly. When it comes to Carlsberg, though, Councillor Russell, I would say that because of the nature of this in terms of the dilution with regard to the alternative vote provision, it's less Carlsberg beer and probably more a Carlsberg shandy, frankly.
Point of order, if I may. Order being right to reply 836D. May I, please? I have the motion that was sent to me, which is 2 sentences long. It's extremely weak. If anything, if that's Carlsberg, that's Timu, Mr. Mayor.
Right, I think we should move on from speaking of lager. So we have Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not for me to say whether this is the lucky saint of motions or indeed the Stella Artois of motions. But the process by which it's created, the quality of the final result will hopefully leave a pleasing aftertaste should the motion be passed. I'm in favour of this motion. I think it's a good motion. There are in this chamber councillors who have been elected, councillors who have been defeated, councillors who faced many elections, councillors who faced one. Nobody in this chamber should be frightened of the ballot box if they work hard for their residents, if they believe in whichever political party they support has the right message for the residents of Brentwood, that they put the hours in on the streets, yes, online, knocking up the doors and so on and so forth. and we live and die by our merits as politicians. And if we do a good job, we hope we'll be returned. But the privilege of being returned belongs to the residents of this borough. That is the risk and responsibility all politicians run. And so for that reason, when we take on being a politician, becoming a councillor, we accept that there may come a chance that we're elected, and there may come a chance that we're not. But we have to enjoy the benefits of what democracy brings us. I have no problem in backing this motion. I support democracy. I support the fairness about which Councillor Aspinall spoke, and I can indeed confirm that he was banging on about this motion and these concepts for some considerable time, because I'm the chair of the group and I've had to listen to those discussions.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very pleased that the Joint Administration has brought this motion to tonight's meeting for debate and discussion. The Liberal Democrats strongly believe in local democracy and our residents having the right to vote at county and borough council elections in May 26, and we look forward to presenting our case to them over the months ahead. Many residents living in our borough are very concerned about the democratic accountability and the need for their voices to be heard on the key issues affecting their communities, particularly at County Hall. None more so than the residents living in the Brentwood South County Division, where I am one of the 9 borough councillors representing residents. I've lost count of the number of emails and calls I've had from frustrated residents who've not been able to get hold of their sitting county councillor to get action on various issues. Residents are fed up with this situation and are very disappointed the county elections were cancelled last year, and they can certainly see no reason for them to be cancelled again in 2026. Whilst we all know the county council is going to be scrapped, it is still taking over £52 million of our residents' money in council tax every year. And it's vital that our residents have county councillors elected across the borough who are going to hold the administration to account for all the things they're responsible for and make sure residents get the services they deserve. Turning to the borough council elections, I fully support them going ahead in 2026. Residents should have an opportunity to express their views on how the joint administration is doing and decide who is representing their communities through the ballot box. With regard to the mayoral elections, I'm very disappointed they've been cancelled by the government just 6 months before they were scheduled to take place. But I have to say I'm not surprised. Whilst the county and borough councils have managed to keep to the government's LGR and devolution timetable by submitting a number of proposals on time, this government seems to be struggling with its own timing on the whole process, not just in Essex, but across the country. Makes you wonder if the government have really thought the whole thing through. The recent announcement cancelling the mayoral elections caught, I'm sure, many in the Labour Party by surprise. Never mind our voters, who always seem to be the last to be considered. In my view, the mayoral elections should go ahead in May, but we're going to have to wait another 2 years. Then at least they'll be under a fair voting system, which is far better than first past the post. I had to smile when I heard Councillor Quirk's comments. Reform used to be in favour of PR. I remember Nigel Farage saying how wonderful PR was, but it seems obviously it's another policy that's changed and you're now in favour of first past the post. I hope the members across the chamber will get behind this motion and give it their full support. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. You're up next. We have Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted by this motion, I'll be honest with you, because I don't support proportional representation. I never have. The first past the post system, for all its faults, gives clear, decisive leadership when electing a body. However, on the subject of elections taking place, I didn't agree with the county elections being postponed for 12 months. I don't agree with any further postponement. I think they should go ahead, as should the district elections. And for that reason, I may be able to just hold my nose with that mention of PR in the motion. It's something the Lib Dems have always loved, so I'm not surprised. And I know that locally the Labour Party has many supporters of PR. But if we don't go ahead with elections as scheduled, the public will become more cynical. they will turn to more extreme parties to elect people to voice their frustrations, and I do believe that we should go ahead with all the elections as scheduled, so I probably will vote for the motion, but with the caveat that I don't support PR. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll be relatively brief, I think, but this motion is both timely and necessary. I mean, it is the case that we saw the county council elections deferred last year. That was done through a statutory instrument. No debate in the House of Commons, simply a ministerial decision, done. We have now got the mayoral elections deferred by 2 years. Well, the county councils are supposed to be being deferred by a year to allow the mayor to come in. Now we've got the mayor being deferred by 2 years to allow the local government reform to abolish the county council. It is unbelievably confused. There is no law yet in place to create those mayoral elections. It's been announced that there will be no more police and crime commissioner elections ever in the country. Yeah? That was supposed to be in a white paper published last week. It has not been published. Not a bill, not a draft act. This is a white paper for discussion. It's assumed by everyone to be true that PCCs are going to go. But that law has not even been drafted as a white paper yet. We're now told it'll be early in 2026. Well, what does that mean? Presumably before July. We'll see. It's been deferred 3 times already. We really need to be a loud voice from this council demanding that elections that are due take place when they are due and not deferred again. Because the plans to replace these things are not yet in place. The laws are not yet created. We are deferring things on a wing and a hope. And I understand Councillor Quirk's point around who did it first. This needs to be done not just by us, but by every council across the country. We need to be really loud on this, not split by parties across this chamber. Let's be united, let's be a strong voice, and let's lend our voice to everybody else.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's quite obvious from previous meetings my feelings about the unitaries and the way they're going. I'm not happy. I don't like it, and I know there must be change over the years, but I think the change is really the dregs of the way borough councils and unitaries should be run. I don't want to vote on this paper. I probably will. There's a number of things that I dislike. Obviously the change or the suggested change in voting, never been in favour of it, never will be. First past the post is the way England does its business, and we should stay under that method. I'm a bit surprised with the administration sort of saying how much they dislike the idea that the government has thrown the elections out of court when and how undemocratic it is. And when the previous motion they threw out because they didn't want to vote on it. How you can't be undemocratic and democratic at the same time. I probably will vote on it and vote in favour because most of my members think that's the way to go. I am of the opinion, and it's a personal opinion, and I know it won't be viewed by many other people, that the way this government is behaving, it's a suggestion that they won't reach the end of their term and things will go even more skew with. So I just think the more trouble we make, the less chance of this going through in its present form will probably not happen. But let's just hope.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. We have no one else to speak. Councillor Minor, you can reserve your rights to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I reserved my right to speak was I wanted to hear, obviously, what other people in the council chamber were saying. before I spoke. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I think we've had a good debate, very good debate. It's excellent to hear not just the cross-party agreement, albeit with you know, caveats and nuances, but also the level of passion and anger that is clearly felt cross-party, because this is an extremely important issue. I think anybody listening to this debate can hear that we all feel that it's an extremely important issue, and we feel very strongly about it. We've sort of, given the alcohol references that were going on earlier on, I thought I would start off by saying the discussions about who started it and who got there first. I think the best way of summing it up would be there's been a good deal of brewing behind this motion. It took a bit of brewing, it took a bit of work. The date when it finally went in was not the date when it was first discussed. There was a lot that went on behind it. I think I think there are some extremely positive things that have been said. I mean, I think the fact that Councillor Russell said and emphasised that it was a strong motion, I think that's extremely good to hear that. I was actually looking at the wording of the motion, and I sort of thought, oh, you know, maybe it could have been expressed more forcefully. But I think that some of the phrases in this motion are extremely good. I think the phrase that this council underlines that this council expects elections to proceed appropriately is actually an extremely strong phrase. The word appropriately, I mean, who could want elections to proceed or not proceed inappropriately? And we've heard expressions from people tonight. I mean, Councillor Worsfold saying it's an affront to the democratic process, the way we're being mucked around. Councillor Barber saying that if we don't go ahead with elections, the public will become more cynical. I totally agree with that. I mean, I think these are very serious concerns. The other thing that struck me reading that wording was the word expects. And I suddenly thought to myself, I recognise the word expects. I've heard that used in forceful circumstances before. Nelson's signal uses the word expects. It seems like a relatively tame word, but when we say expect, we blooming well mean something. This is important. It matters. It's democracy. It's our democratic country. It's the votes that should take place.
30 seconds,
it's
Councillor.
the legitimacy of the organisations that we are part of and that we want to be representatives of on behalf of the public. That's what we're talking about. That's the importance of this. That's why it's so important. And it's great to hear the almost unanimity on it.
Can we request a recorded vote, please?
Certainly. We need 5 members to indicate that. Noted. Thank you. Councillor Worsfold, 5 minutes to sum up.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And thank you everyone for their contributions. Feeling that sense of unanimity across the chamber in the belief in democracy. Look, we don't fear elections. Look, most of us have been in politics a very long time. We've watched opinion polls go up, opinion polls go down. I've watched my party go from having 6 seats to 72 seats and everything in between. We do not fear elections. We want the right to put our policies. We want you to have the right to put your policies before our residents and let the residents choose. And that right is being denied. And that is an affront. It's an affront to everything we believe. It's an affront to the foundations of British democracy. I passionately believe that. I'm fascinated by Reform's flip-flop on PR. In the aftermath of the 2024 election, when they momentarily had 5 MPs before they started losing a few of them, and we had 72 MPs on virtually the same share of the vote, they were all in favour of PR. They were all in favour of it. Why have they changed? I tell you why they've changed. Because they've learned to add up. Because in that election, and even in the local council elections in England earlier this year, progressive parties had a majority. And that's what Reform fears. Reform have done the sums, and they realise that under any system of PR, they wouldn't be sweeping into control of council after council, which they can make a disastrous shambles of. They wouldn't be sweeping into power in Downing Street. They'd be staying on the sidelines. because there is a progressive majority in this country. That's what the votes in the ballot boxes show. So that's, we can understand it's purely self-interest. And those who still believe in the first past the post system, can I urge you to read this week's Economist, which explains in great detail how the first part of the past the post system just does not work in a multi-party system. It's become a lottery. We got 72 seats in the general election, almost the same share of the vote. Reform got 5. There's no fairness in that. There's no fairness in that. And slight changes of the vote in a multi-party system result in huge swings in the number of seats. First past the post was designed in the 19th century when there were 2 parties, and it worked. It doesn't work anymore. Please wake up and look at the reality. We all need proportional representation to deliver fair results in the elections for our electors, so our electors can look at council chambers, can look at Parliament and say, that represents us. That's what democracy is about.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald.
No.
You wasn't named in any of that, so you may not have a right to reply. You're not weren't named. Councillor Quirk, you are not named in that, so you do not have a right to reply. So we go to the vote. Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane.
For.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert.
For.
Councillor Aspinall.
For.
Councillor Baldock.
For.
Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Gareth Barrett.
For.
Councillor Dr. Barrett.
For.
Councillor Chinnery.
For.
Councillor Martin Cuthbert.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunger. Councillor Wagland. Councillor Worsfold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 32-4. The motion is carried.
Thank you. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance. Please join me for refreshments in the committee room.